Okay, good to see you. Welcome back to a conversation that's actually continuing on prior lessons. As you recall, this one is all about the pricing services correctly. Lesson three, I think we are in a position now that we can begin talking about the plan to turn it around whereby your clientele begins looking more like high ticket guests rather than best friends forever. Now, in the last conversation, I asked you to go back on an archaeological dig, and that is go back 1 month. In your book, look for your best friends forever that used to be your guest. Look at the ticket. See how much money on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis was actually in the book representing friendly discounts, and taking a peek to say, hey, if I were to correct this with a plan, how much more money am I going to be able to make on the week, the month, of the year? So I'm hoping that you're in a much better position to do that now. Let's take a look at the plan. And the first thing I want you to zero in on, it's a 1 year plan. I don't want you to try to go back and correct by, this Friday what took maybe a couple of years or so to get into. This one is really all about eating that elephant one bite at a time. We're going to correct this one BFF at a time. And the other thing I want to begin with is that I want to give you some hope. I'd like you to begin imagining that you have lifetime high ticket guests that you haven't even met yet. You're going to see that that's built in to the plan. Let's look at the plan. I'm going to give you a quick drive-by. I think there's 4 parts to this 1 year turnaround plan. And the first part in the plan is to be guest friendly without making guests your friends. The second part is we're going to really work on getting referrals from some of your high ticket guests that are not friends. We're going to look at offering reconsults to all of your low ticket guests that perhaps are friends that used to be your guests, to see if they miss it. And then the biggie is when all else fails, we're going to be talking about crucial conversations with best friends forever who used to be your guests, to get them back to either being a guest again, or how can we begin handing them off to other people that have price points that maybe they can afford. So what I want to do is I want to do a quick drive-by, take each piece, put it under the microscope so that you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Starting with the 11th commandment. Thou shalt be guest friendly without making guests your friends. No more making guests your friends. I had with you a few lessons ago an extraordinary conversation. I think it was probably 10 minutes. And it's what I would do if I was you is I would go back to it. It's called pricing. It's in the section, pricing section, lesson 1. It's called the introduction. And I went over some profound golden nuggets about this whole idea of guest friendly and making guests friends. And the bottom line of it is that to become much, much more mindful, you can be guest friendly, and you can have a very close relationship with your guests without befriending them and all that went with it. So watch that another 200 times until it gets into your core puzzles. The other point that I want to leave you with on this step in the action plan is, henceforth, as you're working with your guests and you get to the add-on service and you begin talking about it, when you sense that there's a money concern, I want you to be thinking about giving options to your guest on a smaller part of that service that might require less money, which is way different than giving a lower price on a premium service. That's the habit that was developed over the years, where you were just automatically reducing the price because you felt guilty. That's the habit we want to break. Now, bottom line in this particular point is, as you become aware of this habit of being way too quick, I call it undercharging and over discounting, 2/3 of breaking that habit is the mindfulness that you have the habit and the understanding of leaving that habit left unchecked. There's like this self-correct in all of us where we want to, you know what, I want to get that habit out of me and I want to start cleaning that up. So go back, watch that videotape. Next part, and this is biggie. We're going to begin developing greater mindfulness in getting referrals from many of the high-ticket guests that you already have that you haven't befriended yet. As well as over the next 365 days, if you hang out on this channel, on this .com, you're going to be getting, probably 50, 60, 70, some of you, maybe 100 guests or more that are referrals over the next year. We're going to show you. This particular point is so important that there's going to be some follow-ups on it on the action plan. We're going to be talking a lot about how do you use social media to get more guests with money from high-ticket guests that you already have. And I'm going to give you a whole piece of that on social media to follow up on this conversation, as well as I want to take you to rereading the lesson 8 in Over the Top, because in there's a whole piece of some scripts that we use when we're asking in real time high-ticket guests in our chairs for referrals. Now, again, I'm going to follow up on this lesson where I'll be demonstrating what are some graceful ways of asking a high-ticket guest to send in another high-ticket guest. So there's more to come on this point. Now, Number 3 is we want to begin checking in with some of our low-ticket friends who used to be a high-ticket guest to see how many of them miss being a high-ticket guest and all that came with it. And we called that getting permission to do a reconsult. Now, again, you and I had that conversation a few lessons ago. It was in lesson 4 in the video library. It was called Opening Statements in the Consultation. It was all about reconsulting. Here was one of the scripts we used. So I want you to go back and rewatch it again. Remember that one? Hey, Chloe, it's been a few visits since I've checked in with you about what we've been doing on your hair. And you know what? I want to make sure that we keep your look nice and fresh. And then the big question, what would you like me to take a couple of minutes before we start today and talk about some new ideas? That was the question that helped you to see how many of your friends miss being your guest. Watch that. That was another one of those 10 or 12 minute extraordinary conversations. If they said yes, you're back in the game. If they said no, that brings us to the number 4, the crucial conversation. And that crucial conversation is with Best Friends Forever, whereby we need to come into a new agreement around pricing. I'm no longer in a position to honor a price that you and I came into a year, 2, 3 years ago. We need to have that conversation. That conversation with your friend that used to be a guest is so profoundly important that I'm going to devote an entire 10-minute video lesson just to that. We're going to be giving you a handoff script to those friends that they tell you they don't have the money. So we're going to nip this one in the bud, but in the name of saving some time, I don't want this to go much over 10 minutes. I'll revisit that in the next a few lessons. And then last but not least, and I'll put it in that lesson as well, and that is we have a lot of family members now that have, as your family of origin grows and grows from, a couple of sisters, a brother and your mom, and now you've got sisters-in-laws and brother-in-laws and your cousins and aunts and uncles, and all of a sudden your book is getting full. And this is as much of a problem as the best friends forever that used to be your guest. We're going to give you those scripts for for those conversations. It's just going to happen in the proceeding lessons. So I've given you a lot of stuff to chew on. And what I want you to do is I want you to go back. I want you to take a closer look at the prices of your menus, and that's going to be your next rule of thumb, is that I want to start honoring the integrity of my prices. I'm going to ask you to go back to review the previous lessons if you haven't. Lesson number 1 on the pricing, lesson 4 opening statement. There's some other content I'd like you to review, pages 113 and 203 through 209. They support this lesson. So if you do that, you go back, get really reviewed in that, and I'll meet you in the next lesson to pick up where we left off. See you soon.